So this is the Saxons that back in the day. I'm not talking about any Saxons or Anglicans or Anglo-Saxons today. I'm not, so don't get all sensitive if you're, I'm talking about the history here, okay? So this is the Saxons. They were a Germanic tribe, and the Anglicans the same. They were a Germanic tribe. Neither the Anglicans nor the Saxons wanted to convert to Christianity, okay? So they did do human sacrifices, and they didn't do it on their children or their own people, but they did it on their prisoners of war. Here you can see it's to a Roman guard, because you can tell by the helmet. And then obviously there's some other ones there. So they would often do this before they were leaving, like wherever the land was they were dwelling in. They would sacrifice in very torturous ways. And they used the rock as the altar, and they sacrificed several prisoners that they're holding, prisoners of war, and they sacrificed them to their German gods. When they were conquered in the 8th century, because they were around in the late 7th century, but they were conquered by Charlemagne the king. I forget what part of Germany, but he conquered them. And they did not want to, like most of Germany, because you have to remember, this is all 700 AD. So after Jesus, which would have been 33 AD, that word is spreading, okay, to Scotland, to Britain, to whatever, everywhere. And most people are converting. But everybody was under paganism then. Not everybody did human sacrifice. No, only a few did that. But everybody was doing the paganism. But when they heard the word of Jesus, most of them converted. Most of Germany converted. Except for the Saxons. They would not. They refused. They didn't want to. And the mistake Charlemagne the king made, and it's why we don't do this in America, is he forced it. One of the things was he outlawed human sacrifice, which you can understand that, right? I mean, clearly. But he was trying to force it on them. He even forced himself to become Christian, hoping that, that would be a representation for them. But if he's faking it, you can't force it. Even Jesus didn't force it. That's why we don't do it here in America. It doesn't work. But you have to look at it from the king's eyes, too. They're like, they back then, they believed that, they were understanding more than people today do. Because everything... If you want an explanation for anything going on today or past in the history, it's in the Bible. Take any country in the world, okay? Especially ones under communism or monarchies or socialism, okay? And you will see in the Bible why they're under it. That was what made America unique, is because those pilgrims, they got fed up with all this. Because what happened is the Anglo-Saxons came into Britain, okay? And then they acted like they were Christian, because when they were conquered by Charlemagne the king, that once he was forcing it on them, what were they to do? But they never truly accepted it, because you're not going to accept it by it being forced on you. You're not. You're going to resent it. So they ended up bringing their practices in, mixing it with Christianity. Then you got the pilgrims mad at the king, and you got the king trying to handle all this, okay? Because this is a problem. And what do? These are dilemmas, okay? And that's why America was set up where it's like, okay, no, we don't allow human sacrifice. I'm sure that goes on, though. Would anybody doubt that today? We just don't know about it. But we wouldn't allow that. I mean, there's limits to this. But we have freedom of religion that, people will, because some of this you have to let God do. But back in that day, it worried many of the kings, because God does say what will happen if the majority of your people fall away. It's all through the Old Testament. That's why historians, I don't get why they can't line this up. It's so simple. Any communist country, the further you fall away from Jesus. And I know people don't like to hear that, but it's in the Bible. So if you just line up the history with what the Bible says, then you have your proof and evidence. Take any country you want. That's why America has come under problems, okay? Is because people have fallen away. That evil one as it says in the Bible, that rules this world, that's the way it tries to get every country to get away from your values you started with. And one of the problems that happened too with Germany is Germany did convert. And so they didn't have to be forced. It was just the Anglican and the Saxons that were resisting. And then only when it was forced upon them did they act like they accepted it, but they really never did. Okay? So, the thing is then you have Frederick the Great, which I think he was king of Prussia, part of Germany, okay? And he started bringing in the Age of Enlightenment. I'm going to do the Age of Enlightenment and where that mess took people in a different video, okay? Because that is a different video. But Frederick the Great, I believe it was, he was a king. He meant well. I'll talk about him in a different video. But so by him going down this road, he was getting away from the values. Like, that's why it's important to keep it simple with the values. That's why people that want to always incorporate like energy, vibration, and all this frequency, this is all adding to the Bible. All that stuff is to help you move a path away from. Because I went down those roads. That's what it's meant to do. It's meant for you to think, oh, God's okay with this. Because that's what that wicked one does to every country. That's why everybody does all these different rituals, okay? But in the Bible, literally it says, if this is what you do, this is what was going to happen to you. Now, when it comes to the Holocaust, the Nazis, many of them were Saxons. Because again, they're a German tribe. And it says the Nazis did not specifically identify as Saxons, but they did draw on historical narratives about the Saxons and other Germanic tribes to promote their ideology of Aryan superiority. So this is clearly, it goes into the, like, you have your paganism, and then you have your, this is, demon worshiping, really, because they're sacrificing a human being to their gods. So then when you have even, people in Germany, maybe, I'm not talking necessarily about the people, but there was already people going in the wrong direction, Age of Enlightenment coming in, just the perfect, and then this, and you have this, you have the Saxon and Anglicans that don't want to have anything to do with Christianity, so they likely were doing this, maybe just not out in the open. And so all of that stuff is then going to lead to something like the Holocaust. Now, that said, though, the Jews also play a responsibility in the Holocaust. I know I'm a horrible person for saying that, but it's in the Old Testament. I mean, literally, I did a video like a year ago about this, and I'm not trying to blame the Jews. It's just this is why God was always saying they were so hard-headed. But he made it very clear to them, yes, you're my chosen people. If you fall away, this, I mean, like everything he lists, I forget what book it is, but everything he lists, and it's so specific, it's what happened to them in the Holocaust. It literally is. So I'm not trying to blame them. I'm just saying that it's important to line up the Bible as a history book with what's going on in the world. So there's that, and what was happening during the Holocaust, they were doing a human sacrifice. It was torturous, the things they did, okay? And the reason the Age of Enlightenment is an issue here, too, is because the Age of Enlightenment goes into that science and, we're so, special and important and we know more than God. But I'll do that in a different video. But so you had the science, the disgusting science that went on and experimentation during the Holocaust. You had the absolute gassing of millions of Jews and gypsies, others, but mainly the Jews. And it's all talked about in the Bible, but it's because of, this is what happens. So, and this is not me trying to place blame on today's people that are Saxon or Anglicans that's not the point. My point is trying to say the Bible is true. That's my point. Because what they did during the Holocaust was a sacrifice. A big one. So I'm going to follow this up with another video about the Age of Enlightenment that ties to this.